topic is success by sea, by air, and by land. What is the definition of success? And really, that should be a question that isn't like one destination point. Success are the little steps, the minor adjustments, the course corrections that we make along the way towards our larger success. And the way we make these course corrections and minor adjustments has everything to do with our focus and our willingness to adjust. When we are on our path towards success, sometimes we think we're taking the right steps, moving in the right directions, and yet we keep banging our heads against a wall, running our legs right into the metal piece of the life preserver. We sometimes don't stop to ask ourselves, why are we still having struggles? And in the end, that struggle was really me. It was my decision. I kept choosing to run into it over and over again because I thought I was avoiding a bigger danger. Instead of thinking, is there an easier way to do this so I can both get around it and stay out of danger? If I'm thinking about this from a professional standpoint, is there a way I can do what I'm doing and evaluate whether or not it's being successful, and then recognize that maybe I should course correct? Maybe I can operate differently. The second part of success at sea for me came when we were sailing between two islands. And we hit some pretty big swells. They were about 6 to 8 feet swells. And we had enough wind behind our back to move us. So we actually had the sails up. We were actually sailing, not using the motor. But with 6 to 8 feet swells that were coming from the side, even though we had the wind at our back pushing us, in other words, even though we had a lot of favorable conditions, we still had these big waves coming from the left. And every time they came, every time the boat adapted to those waves, it took us in a slightly different direction. Now, we had a straight line between the islands. There was a literal straight line to go to get between one island and the next. And it took 5 hours to go 24 miles. Why did it take 5 hours to go 24 miles? Because we kept going left and right. Because those swells, as they hit, took us a little left, a little right, a little left, a little right. Does that sound familiar to sometimes the things that get in the way or make our goals a little bit more challenging in work? Because we may want to get on that straight path. I want to get this done. This project is driving me crazy. I just want to get it done. But then something comes from the left and deviates you a little bit. And something comes from the right and deviates you a little bit. And things don't go exactly the way you want them to. When you think about something right now that is getting in your way of one of your major goals, maybe it's getting in the way of something that you, maybe it's part of one of your big 2024 goals, maybe it's just something that popped up this week. But when you think about something that is right now causing you some sort of frustration or pain in terms of achieving your goals, I want you to ask yourself this: what part of my actions are contributing to this pain? What's interesting about a frigate is, what I thought was the most interesting thing about the frigate is they have the ability to do two things. Number one, they can fly nonstop without eating, sleeping, anything for up to a month. Up to a month. The second thing is they have an internal radar, or whatever you want to call it, that when a hurricane is coming, or a cyclone in that part of the world, they can fly above it. Their internal body tells them there's a really bad storm coming and I can't survive it down here. So they fly above the hurricane. And they can fly above the hurricane for up to 1 month. So we're talking about altitudes above airplanes, or at least equal to airplanes. And I thought, wow, that's really interesting. When danger is coming, they're able to get really high above it. Now, what happens when you get high above a hurricane? Well, number one, you are safer from the winds, right? Because you're not down in the midst of it. But number two, you can see where the hurricane is. You can see where it's moving. You can see where it's been. You can see if it's breaking up. And they don't come down again until the hurricane is gone. Interesting. How many of us in the pursuit of our goals feel like we're being tossed around in a hurricane? When something comes at us from left and right, when there's just too much on our plate, when we're too stressed out, when we don't know why things aren't working. So it can feel like bouncing around. And when you start to get tossed around by a hurricane, pretty soon you're exhausted and all you do is just let the winds carry you where they are. And we can do that with our careers. We can do that with our goals. We can do that with our professional objectives. Heck, we can do that with our lives, personally. But what would it mean to us to get above the hurricane and have distance, to have perspective? It doesn't mean that they're not still in danger. It doesn't mean that it doesn't promise that that hurricane is going to dissipate faster. But what do they know? They can see it, so they have information. Professionally, we often feel like we're being battered in a hurricane and we just have to hold on and get through it. But by taking the opportunity to try and rise above it ourselves, to get ourselves to a higher perspective, to view things more dispassionately, to take ourselves out of the mix, to take other people out of the mix, to take Mother Nature out of the mix, then we can make different decisions.